Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with my weekly garden tour. We are on the last Sunday of January, and though it is bright and sunny, it is quite brisk and windy out here today. We had yet another snowstorm, and we've had more temperatures down into the teens, which is the coldest that we've had for at least 3 years. And the garden is starting to look a little beat down from winter. So let's take a stroll so you can see for yourself what looks good, what looks bad, and what I will need to address sooner than later. Well, let's start with good. The best thing right now is this barley wall. And this is from livewall.com. This is actually the live screen. You see it comes on casters. I've had a few people ask questions about this. And I've been growing in this since 2016, and I grow in it year-round. I don't have it attached to automatic irrigation at this time of year because we are so cold. So I just hand water it using that hose that's, right here adjacent. And, we've had an ice storm and 2 rains, and 2 snows. And you can see that the barley looks perfectly fine. It's still nice and bright green and thick and no cold damage at all. In general, I'm having to water this about once a week with the hose, so not really a lot of maintenance. And that goes for all of these containers here in my driveway bed that benefit from the microclimate of all this concrete. This is south facing. It's definitely a zone 8 microclimate. So I probably should have put on a real coat because this vest is not really warm enough. But I did want to show you a couple of plants that are doing exceptionally well. That way you'll, remember them hopefully to include for next season. So in addition to grains like barley, wheat, and oats, there's a handful of other edibles that are super tolerant of the colder temperatures. Let me show you. First up, we have parsley. And you can see, it has really only a little bit of cold damage on some of the oldest leaves, but the new growth is fine. And of course you can harvest this to eat. It's quite delicious. And planted with that is garlic. And garlic also hasn't really been damaged in any way by the recent real winter that we've been experiencing. And garlic is great because it helps deter animals both above ground and in ground. This is a bed that I've had a lot of vole activity in, and so I've just sort of interspersed garlic in specific areas to help deter that activity. You can see I have more garlic planted here in mass, and then of course my garlic edges, which are one of my cool season signatures. All of my beds have garlic growing in them along edges to help deter animals. Now another plant that's done pretty well through our cold is the Ms. America mustard. And you can see there's a little damage on some of the older leaves, but again, the new growth looks fine. So I definitely would rate that high. In contrast, these poor broccolis, I definitely should have just gone ahead and harvested those heads because now they're kind of ruined. And even the cabbages look kind of worse for wear. I'm not going to jump the gun because I don't think winter is over. I'm just going to leave these in, and they'll sort of be a study for what's the temperature that really knocks them back. I see I do have one sort of decent small head here. And at this stage, I think I'm just gonna leave it and see what grows, what doesn't. Obviously, when we do start to get consistently warmer, I'll be replacing all those broccolis and cabbages, but maybe I'll get something to be able to harvest. Speaking of some winter damage, the snapdragons have definitely not done as well as some years. Yeah, we'll see what happens to these. I'm not going to cut them back yet. Again, I don't think we're out of the woods with cold weather. But it's possible that these actually won't make it. Not really the, you know, it's not really filling me with confidence, needless to say. But that's okay. These beds can always be reworked in the spring when temperatures are more mild. So you can see that like the kale and mustard looks a little limp, but yeah, I mean, it actually feels fine. This bed, of course, the broccoli looks a little worse for wear. That's definitely cold damage. But all of the poppies in here, all these poppy seedlings, they do have some cold damage on them, but overall they're fine. And behind that is all barley. This barley was way ahead, so it's a little tender compared to other barley planted in the garden. But I know that that will, you know, it'll all perk back up and it'll grow out fine. Honestly, I think violas are the real superstar of winter. And you see, these were covered in snow up till this morning, and they just bounce right back, full of flowers. And you know, they're especially nice in containers. I am getting quite anxious about cutting back this phlox. I'm ready. So we are supposed to have some warmer temperatures later on this week. I'm going to get the push mower out and do some cutbacks on perennial plants like phlox and aster and mums. You can see here is a big area of chrysanthemums that can be cut back. Just do some general tidiness. Now the hellebores are blooming, and I do need to get in here and cut back all the old foliage here on these. Now remember, hellebore foliage can carry viruses, so don't put it in your normal compost pile. I just toss these into the woods. But I'm excited about getting the hellebores cleaned up, so I'll actually really be able to start enjoying those blooms. And I need to come through and trim up that fern and, you know, do some maintenance just in general. I'll be more motivated to do that when it's like in the 50s versus in the low 40s like we have today. So of course another patch of phlox that just needs to be trimmed down. I try to do that before it starts to actively grow, and it's certainly not growing yet, but you can see, you know, the rosette foliage of the phlox. So this will just look a lot neater once I get that trimmed down. Miraculously, the lettuce, you know, it's definitely has some cold damage, but I think it's gonna survive and push through without any trouble. And all the seedlings in this bed look fine. So I think this will be a really pretty display come the summer season. I've definitely been enjoying this Lindera with its tardily deciduous tawny foliage. With 3 cats, you'd think that I wouldn't have rabbits eating all the barley out here, but I do. I do need to get out here and apply some deer and rabbit repellent. I use I Must Garden. You can really see how it's just being nibbled down. This has happened in the past, and generally it'll outgrow that stage. But I have a responsibility as a gardener to, you know, help deter those animals, and I need to get on that. I think we have at least a few days without any precipitation in the forecast. And when I have the lawnmower out, I'll come through this front bed and just kind of mow all of this material down as well. I get it cleaned up. I might even get ambitious and do a little bit of mulching just to make this bed look kind of neat and fresh. Remember, I use triple shred hardwood, and I use very, very small amounts, usually less than an inch. And I really only do that in this bed once a year, if even that often. Probably I'm more like every couple of years I get this mulched. I'm just saying that now because I have cabin fever and I'm so tired of being in my office, sitting on my computer, that the idea of hauling mulch sounds really exciting. But this bed will definitely, I think, be improved with me just doing some, seasonal cutbacks, the mowing, and definitely if I do get it mulched in any capacity, that always is a game changer as a facelift for a bed. I was gonna say, overall, nothing exciting is happening in the garden at all. The cold just slows everything down. There's lots of plants that don't look great, but I'm just sort of pausing. And I hope that you all have enjoyed my top 5 plants for January interest. That's been kind of a fun thing to indulge in, and I plan on doing that for every month. So be sure to, tune into that playlist, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what your best performers have been for this, maybe not exceptionally cold, but, accurately winter-like month of January. I'll definitely admit, this is not a real motivating time of year for me. I hate being cold, and my fingers are absolutely frozen. I'm really happy that we do have a warm-up for at least a couple of days this week, but winter is definitely not my season to shine. I'm just counting down the days until it's consistently warm and being outside is more fun. Obviously, I'm not into winter snow sports. Overall, the garden looks fine. It's not particularly interesting, but I'm really grateful for the warmth that we did have over the holidays, because that made stands like this that are just completely full of larkspur, really well established, and there's no damage from the cold in these beds where the seed has had plenty of time to germinate and establish. Now the beds like what I just showed you here, no seed germination on this at all. I did this on the last warm day over the holiday season before temperatures crashed. So I still think the seeds will germinate, but I did miss that window. So I'm gonna stick with the advice that I had been given from the start of my career. In this area, sowing poppies and larkspur and all those cool season things really is best to be done in late November and early December. I do have faith that some of my later seeds will germinate, but so far there's really no sign of germination. So yeah. Anyhow, I am sending you all the best, and I hope you will stay warm and safe and healthy. And I look forward to sharing another update with you next weekend after hopefully we've had a few days of warmer weather so I can come outside and play in the garden and actually feel like I've accomplished something for a change. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.